Hello, friends. Hello, friends. A tradition unlike any other.
Oh, my goodness. In your life, have you seen anything like that?
There it is! Adam Scott, a life changer.
Mashed potato!
Here it comes.
Now, Druids, I've got some great news for those of our listeners out there who, like me, love a matte black finish on your clubs. As our great mates at Cobra have introduced a sleek all-black colourway of its popular LTDX drivers. The LTDX black drivers possess the same performance and design features as the standard LTDX models, but with the addition of a striking matte black finish on the crown and sole and grey stripe details. And in more good news for those black finish lovers, Cobra has introduced a second colorway with the King Cobra Black Wedge. The wedge features a satin black QPQ finish, which is highly durable and helps reduce glare in the sunlight. The LTDX black drivers and wedges are available now. So for more information, visit cobragolf.com. This is the 19th Tee podcast. Kieran Marsh, Nathan Drudy, back in your ears for another week. Drudster, as they say, timing is everything. And we are, of course, a couple of nights later than regular programming. For good reason, though, having had our pants pulled down last week, recording just before a major announcement from PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan, we decided to await the confirmed field for the next LIV Golf Invitational in Boston, as it was suspected there would be another raft of defectees. And, of course, the worst kept secret now in international golf is that Cameron Smith headlines 6 further members of LIV Golf moving forward. It's been a remarkable 24 to 48 hours, Druids.
It has. Well, it was meant to be Tuesday night our time, the initial announcement, and we were getting ready to record Monday afternoon, and we thought, well, maybe we'll hold until Tuesday, and then we won't look like idiots, and then the announcement got delayed in typical fashion. So here we are on a Wednesday night recording. Funny 24 hours, KM. Like it's everything that we've already known. It's funny that my initial gut is that I don't actually feel that different about like anything, because I've kind of built it up for so long. Like we've known about Cam Smith really since he didn't deny it at the Open Championship. You know, we've been building ourselves to this moment, albeit there was this small part of me that kind of hoped and thought that he might not actually go. So yeah, it's been a funny couple of days really, Marshy, since the Tour Championship ended.
I tend to agree, Drudes. I've almost maybe, and whether or not this is purely by volume of coverage, by sustained length of time that we've been talking about, even the previous iterations of what was LIV Golf, just the intervention of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in the game that we love. I'm becoming somewhat apathetic to it, to the extent where, the second best golfer by way of rankings, maybe number 2 in the charts, but number 1 in our hearts, I think it would be fair to say. And the biggest name in Australian golf moving to this tour, it was more probably a sense of relief that it was confirmed and we could all move on than any other overriding emotion. I don't know about you.
No, I think that's fair. I think I've been grappling with the question. I'm keen to get your thoughts. Is what if at all, or how, if at all, does this change your opinion of Cam Smith?
Do you know that I'm very conscious of things that I've said and had on the record as it relates to LIV Golf and probably more broadly Saudi Arabia's involvement in the game. Mm-hmm. I read Evan Priest's column today, and I'd urge anyone who hasn't to seek it out on Golf Digest. Ev, of course, a good friend of this podcast, and once again showed the value that is placed in relationships and trust that you build by virtue of those relationships. He is the only person to have spoken to Cameron Smith from a media perspective in the last 24 hours, and wrote a great column with Cam's quotes. And as I said, I'd urge you to find it if you hadn't read it. I think undeniably the unconfirmed figure, we're hearing somewhere in the vicinity of 140 million Australian dollars, 100 million US. Smith refused to kind of confirm or deny that number, or really any number. He didn't put a number to it today, but he was honest in the sense that he said, look, it was a business decision in the end. It was an offer that I couldn't ignore. I thought what was telling was the other parts of that article, was the appeal of the schedule, was the appeal of a genuine off season, was the appeal of the ability to spend an extended period of time back home in Australia, as opposed to a 2-week swing, most of which is taken up by playing tournaments when he does come back home. You know, he spoke about missing significant milestones, missing weddings, missing birthdays, missing babies, just missing the ability to go to what I assume he was talking about was Suncorp Stadium to watch the Broncos play. So just, I think, maybe some home truths that hadn't necessarily been spoken about, that probably softened my stance on it, to be honest. I'm disappointed that I won't see Cameron Smith play week in, week out on the PGA Tour. I can't make any bones about that, because the LIV product is not something that I've engaged in yet. And to be fair, I might have to, we might have to start changing the way that we cover, because if an increasing number of players are going to go to it and an increasing number of Australians, then, we're going to have to follow that. But I am disappointed that I won't see him week in, week out on the PGA Tour. I am increasingly understanding of his decision. And to be fair, that of many of them that are making the decision now.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree with any of what was said. I mean, the trouble is, and look, we take it on face value of Cam Smith here, but the proof will be in the pudding with all of what he said. It's great. It'll be great to spend more time in Australia. So my expectation now is that Cam spends more than 2 weeks swing here. Like, he's confirmed that he'll be playing the Aussie Open and the Aussie PGA. Play more. You've got 140 million in your pocket. You literally, I cannot state this more clearly enough. Prior to signing, he literally never had to work another day in his life. None of these guys who have gone over for exorbitant amounts of money have to go and work another day in their life. So I hope that he does actually stay in Australia and do more than he's already done for Australian golf, which is a great deal already, right? So he's done some fantastic stuff with, taking Jed Morgan and Louis Dobler and all of those sort of guys over and schooling them essentially over in America. I really just hope that it's not just lip service like so many of the other guys have given us on that have defected to the LIV Tour, right? If he genuinely does stay in Australia, plays those two events, hell, tease it up at, I don't know, the Vic Open or some other things, then maybe I'll probably soften my stance a little bit. But I think even now I'm still disappointed, because I'm like, he was the first guy that I looked at on a leaderboard. I would scroll, I would find like where's Cam Smith? Like, where is he? And LIV still doesn't do much for me. I'm not it doesn't. No. What's 54 hole? It doesn't do anything for me right now. So there's a lot of stuff out there about basically go and fill your boots. PGA Tour has killed the Australian Tour, and in a lot of respects that's absolutely true. Mike Clayton said that on this show all but 2 months ago, essentially. So yeah, it's a really hard one to grapple with for me, because I think I can absolutely see the importance of the PGA Tour, but I can also understand the people who are throwing out those opinions of go and fill your boots because the PGA Tour has ruined the Australian Tour.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with what you're saying in terms of his presence here over the summer. Probably manage people's expectations. I wouldn't necessarily think he's going to come down and tee it up in 8 or 9 events. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he tees it up in more than the 2 that he's already committed to.
But he should.
He absolutely should. But I think by the same token, he has been pretty clear on a big part of the reason why he has taken this opportunity is his ability to come home and spend time with his family and his friends, not come home and play 8 or 9 tournaments in Australia when he could have just been playing those elsewhere in the world. So I absolutely think that he'll he'll play more than the 2 that he is committed to. But I want to manage people's expectations. I don't think it's going to mean he's coming back to play the full summer.
No.
What I would say is you kind of flagged it there, all the work that he already does in terms of bringing those juniors over to spend, the better part of 3 or 4 weeks with him in his Florida base. Think of how many more Louis Dobblers and how many more Jed Morgans he can now help. He's shown that he has a desire to do so. He's got a proven record of doing it year after year. So that's not, for me, a flash in the pan. That's not something he does to be seen to be doing it. It's something he does because he cares. And he has an ability now to probably do that in such a larger volume and scale just by virtue of his like exponential increase in net wealth that he's found over the last 48 hours. And I think, to be fair, like I also read the statement from Harold Varner, who is another one of the 6 today. And I would suggest humbly that Harold has faced things in his life that most PGA Tour professionals haven't, and the clarity with which he spoke in his statement, overwhelmingly gracious to the PGA Tour for the opportunity, for the pathway, for the platform that it's provided him, but made no bones about the fact that what he has been offered by way of a financial return literally changes his life for a kid that grew up in and around the poverty line in North Carolina, and will change generations of his family's life and probably allow him to make a material impact in the lives of other young African-American boys and girls who happen to love the game of golf. Like I think, and this is probably, a lot of people will be listening to this and screaming down, the headphones or at the iPhone or at the car radio. This is literally the definition of sports washing. Understand, but this is what the money is for. It's either for the handful of people who've taken it and shown themselves to be shameless in just taking it, or an increasing number of people here who it seems like it will have a genuinely positive impact on theirs and has the potential to have a ripple effect, positive impact on other people's lives around them if they so choose to use it in that fashion. So it is not ideal. I really dislike what it is doing to the game. It's in my mind, it's irreparable. The split that it has caused, I don't see, particularly for as long as Greg Norman is at the helm of LIV Golf, I do not see any path back to there being a reconciled game or an ability for there to be some sort of mediation or common ground or compromise. Jay Monahan was adamant in his press conference that no player who has defected to LIV will ever be welcome back on the PGA Tour. It was a pretty strong statement. Not under revision, not will take into consideration, not maybe in the future. It was a flat no. And that was pretty strong. So I hate what it's doing to the game of golf. But I find myself probably increasingly understanding of some people who are making the decision to go.
Your position has changed a little bit, hasn't it? I think.
I think I saw Daniel Garb today. He had a couple of tweets about it, and Garby I find to be an eminently sensible man. And he kind of said, he was fielding a lot of comments about, well, essentially, fuck the PGA Tour. They've ruined golf, across the world. They've been incredibly selfish about the markets they've taken us to. They completely ignored and, abandoned, particularly Australasia. And he said, like, you can be angry about that, but also disappointed by this. It's not an either or. It's not a binary position. And this is probably the chickens coming home to roost a little bit for the PGA Tour. Not just about guys like Smith or Leishman, but Joaquin Neiman is an enormous loss for them. Like an enormous loss. This is a guy who won at Riviera, one of the flagstone.
We will get to Joaquin.
Yeah, one of the flagstone tournaments on the calendar. Probably my favorite outside of the majors. Like this is a young Chilean, one of only 2 Chileans. The other Chilean also went, Mito Pereira. These are markets that the PGA Tour has neglected. There's no doubts about that. You can be angry about that, but also disappointed by this. I'm bitterly disappointed that I won't see what is my second favorite player week in, week out on the PGA Tour. Bitterly disappointed. But I don't know. It's hard, right? It's hard to draw the line and expect more of these guys as golfers than we do of, say, multinational corporations or, in fact, our own country. If you look at the DFAT website, we've got a relatively significant investment relationship with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as a country, as the nation of Australia. So, like, it's hard to expect something of Cameron Smith that we don't necessarily expect it ourselves.
Yeah.
And
I think I don't know. For me, it's different being paid $100 million to partake in a sports washing program, which is what it is. Like,
yep, absolutely.
At per coalface, you can't say it's anything other than that. What it does say to me, though, about the decision to leave, one, the deal was clearly done ahead of Jay Monahan's press conference last week. If it wasn't, it just shows you, I guess, basically how little any of those changes are actually going to sway any potential people that are going to go. Two, it also shows that there's great faith in this court case that's now been set for 2024, that the bans might be overturned. And thirdly, also, it probably shows me where the President's Cup kind of stands in the minds of some of these players, which is, honestly, I said that we may not win a point this year, Marshy, and I stand by that statement. I think that we should lay the white flag down now. We are going to get mauled. It's going to be a complete joke. And to be honest, I guess I'm a bit frustrated that we've built up the President's Cup and the work that Ernie had done in the last sort of 3, 4, 5 years. And now it's just we've just kind of pulled the rug out from under it and just gone, oh, it is what it is. Did it ever really mean anything in the first place? I don't know.
It's sometimes I often think you shouldn't ask questions you don't want the answer to. And probably it didn't, to be fair. I think 2019 was an outlier. It was the exception. It wasn't the norm in relation to that. And that was because it was at Royal Melbourne. It was in our backyard. It was Ernie Els who did his utmost to turn it into and mean something, and did an incredible job, got us closer than we've ever been as a team, as an international team. But it's always played second fiddle to the Ryder Cup. It's always, been in that off second year, and we've always struggled as an international team. I think I'm bitterly disappointed. There's nothing better than team golf. Nothing better than team golf. And buoyed by that performance in 2019, I was looking forward to Quail Hollow this year and seeing what we could do back on American soil. I think it is time. There's been a bunch of people calling for it now for some time, but I think the time has come to probably tear the President's Cup down and build it back up again. And whether that's, I love the idea of a mixed competition. I've seen Clates. Clates has been all over this Clates has been all over this for 3 or 4 years. But Clates has been particularly all over this in the last 3 or 4 weeks to say, let's do it this year. Just swap them in. Just do it right now. I've seen him posting potential teams of the top 6 international females in the world. They'd be close. Be a lot closer than what it's going to be. That format will absolutely need to be revisited, because the reality is that you look at the overwhelming majority of players who now sit over and live. It's a combination of European and or rest of the world. There are obviously the handful of, I suppose, what you call bigger name American players who were the first through the door, but overwhelmingly it is the European and international cohort. And you wonder what ripple effect now it will have on the Ryder Cup as well if they manage to snag a few of the younger Europeans. Yeah,
there's so many questions that are still going to fall out of this. And, I still maintain that we are only scratching the surface of this. It's certainly been brought to light, obviously, because Cam has gone and he's the biggest player to have gone to date. I guess the other consideration as well, he's got a 5-year exemption into the majors, which is obviously plays a massive part. There will be no defending players champion. That will be vacant for the first time, I think, ever. But it's fascinating. I mean, looking at the guys who have defected already and the way that their OWGR rankings have already slipped significantly. I mean, DJ's down to 22 in the world. Brooks Koepka's down to 26. I know these guys are exempt into majors, etc. But Bryson's down to 37. Harris English is down to 43. Like there's going to be some pretty quick drop-offs, and someone like a Harold Varner, right, is, he's at 46 in the world already. Like Harold's going to be in the 200s by mid next year.
Harold is very, very, very keen on the outcome of that court case.
As are many of them.
There are some that it does not concern in the slightest because of exemptions or because they're getting paid so much money. I'm not sure that they ultimately care about their ability to play in the majors. There's no doubt. Cam doesn't make that decision, I don't think, had he not been the defending players and now Open Championship winner. I don't think there's any way he makes the jump because for mine, and I say this, I don't know him at all, but majors matter to him. Playing in the best 4 tournaments in the year matter to him. So I don't think that if he were not exempt, I don't think that he would have made that decision. Some have made it regardless, and that's a really, really significant gamble on their behalf. But the cash, baby, it all comes back to the cash.
And I think that's the thing that frustrates me, right? It's like Joaquin Niemann. If maybe we can touch on him briefly. I mean, I'm probably
should we? I'm just conscious. Should we actually? I mean, you'd have to be living under a rock, but should we just detail the 6 people who did make the jump?
Please go. Have you got the list?
I think. Well, I'm potentially going to miss someone here in my overinvestment. We haven't touched on the other Australian, which is Marc Leishman, who I'm sure we'll get to in a moment.
Yeah.
Joaquin Niemann, Mito Pereira, Harold Varner the third, and the 6th and final name is the one that has
Tringali.
Of course, well, that's why it escaped me. Who truly gives a shit about Cameron Tringali?
No one.
So they're your 6 that defected post tour. Notably, no Hideki Matsuyama, which was a strong rumor. Rumors of a figure in the vicinity of $300 to $400 million put on the table for Hideki, given his significance in the Asian region. So he, at this stage, has turned that down. At this stage, I would suggest, is very important proviso on that.
Yes.
So Joaquin Niemann, your thoughts? The 23-year-old, I believe he is, as I said, a multiple winner on the PGA Tour, most recently the Genesis at LIV. One of the great tournaments, one of the most significant tournaments. I believe we'll get to the PGA Tour changes a little later in the episode, but one of the new elevated events, the LIV, because it is such a significant event on the calendar, one of the best outside of the 4 majors. They will no longer have a defending champion playing, courtesy of Joaquin Niemann's move to LIV Golf.
Yeah, so he's made a massive decision because he's not exempted to any majors. So that's the end of his major career for the time being. He's not. I don't think he finished in the top 10 at any of the. At the Masters last year to get the invite back. So I'm probably most frustrated, I think, with Joaquin Niemann.
Wow. Okay.
Because we've kind of known Cam's coming, and for all those reasons, I'm kind of okay with Cam in the sense that if he comes back and does all that stuff for the Australian tour and really builds it up, I can probably live with it, which sounds very hypocritical. But Joaquin Niemann, I'm pissed off with because he sat in on that meeting of the players only consultation. He's a fucking weasel. Like, there was 19 players or something, I believe, and one external facilitator, no one from the tour. So whatever's been decided in that meeting, which, has largely probably already been announced, but in terms of the binding sort of nature of that, hey, we are committed to the PGA Tour, he sat there and said that he was, for as much as we know, right? No one came out of that meeting saying like, oh, well, nah. So he's gone and backflipped on a lot of people. And I honestly, I think that it's a a lost storyline in the last 48 hours is where Joaquin Neiman's position in the game kind of sits, because he undoubtedly has pissed off a lot of people with this decision to go, given a week ago he was sitting in a boardroom in Ponte Vedra or wherever the fuck it was, and
Bedminster, I think.
Well, wherever it was.
At the first event. Delaware. Yeah.
Delaware. Wherever
Corporation City, baby.
Wherever it was, committing and sort of saying, yep, we're going to commit to the PGA Tour and we are going to play together and we want the best players playing together. And here we are a week later saying, thanks very much. So I'm pretty frustrated with Joaquin Neiman because I really enjoyed watching him. I thought he was going to be a big part of the President's Cup future. And yeah, he's thrown it all the chips in on LIV.
Yeah, I do like him and have liked him ever since his first win. He's got a bit of fire, bit of guts. It was completely clinical at Riviera earlier this year in a very impressive display, something that you would have thought laid the foundation for a promising few years to come, and ultimately has decided the cash is what's important to him. And you're exactly right. I mean, it's pretty audacious to take a seat in the room, listen intently as, the preeminent figure in the game and his natural successor, who've clearly been working collaboratively and astutely for the past probably 2 to 3 months on a plan, lay that out to you. Listen intently, nod your head, smile, and then like 4 days later say, nah, I'm good, guys. I'm going to take the however much it was. I'd say north of 80 million for a player of his ilk. So
but he would have had to in that meeting. Like there would have been a point in that meeting where I don't know if they did a
blood oath. Blood oath?
Whip. Well, no, maybe they've done a whip round and they've gone, are we all in agreement that this is what we're going to do? We are sitting here committing ourselves to the PGA Tour. And if he said no, they would have kicked him out of the meeting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get bogged down in semantics. I would probably err more to the side of your attendance implied your
sure
your willingness to participate, as opposed to we did a little whip around. I think it would have been interesting. I'd love to be a fly on the wall if they did.
Oh yeah,
whether it was a raise of hands or an eye or a hoorah. I don't know. Probably a hoorah given Tiger's affiliation with the Navy. But look, it's poor. It's poor form. There's no doubt about that from Joaquin. Poor form. I don't know. I know my position's changed somewhat. I'm struggling to. I just feel as though because this is the beginning, I'm struggling to get up and get angry now about individuals because it's almost becoming about the volume, and take a step back and look at it cumulatively and think, fuck, right, okay, they've got 12 of the last 24 major winners. They've got half of last year's PIP. They've got, a significant number of, what is the world's top 100 players. Like they're making some dents. And so, yes, Joaquin Neiman adds to that, but he's not shifting the needle necessarily. He's part of a bigger problem. And I think, I don't know, for me, it's, to your point, we've barely scratched the surface. This to me is, and we're angry and we're disappointed because we've lost Cam. We've lost another, international rising star that we've kind of invested a little bit of time in and we like and that. But, we've lost a significant amount of other players. And what it feels like to me now is just constant loss as opposed to being able to get frustrated by each individual, because this is a slippery slope. And we will get to the changes announced by the tour momentarily, but they, to me, feel like they've played all their cards. I don't know what's left to play, and that's scary because there is so much more on the other side. There's so much more money. There's so much more opportunity. They've had 1 year of a scratch together YouTube broadcast pulling together venues 3 or 4 weeks out ahead of time. Like imagine just 12 months down the track where they could be as dare I say it, a tour.
Mm. Oh, there's no doubt they're going to improve. I think, like, I don't know. I get frustrated with Neiman. Like, I do get pissed off with that one because it's like you sat there and you said that you were going to commit to the tour and you've turned your back on it in a week. Like, just don't go to the meeting. Simple. Like, if you had
Smithy
to just
didn't.
Yeah.
Smithy had a hip problem, so he found a way not to go them.
But neither did Varner. Neither did any of the other guys that have committed to the tour to live. So I don't know. I get frustrated in that sense when I see guys that just so quickly change their tune from, like, you know, he when he won at Riv, it was like, you know, this is so great. Like, I've dreamed of winning on the PGA Tour, and winning trophies is, you know, so important to me. It's like, it's all like, it doesn't mean anything now in retrospect. Like,
is there any benefit of the doubt in the sense? So, I mean, his name has been bandied about for some time. This wasn't a surprise. So, I think he has probably been considering this shift for a period of time. Is there any benefit in the doubt that, hey, I'll go and I'll just see what's on the table? Like, if I don't go to this, then I can't make an informed decision. If I don't go to this, I don't know at least what they're putting forward and the moves they've made to try and combat. I take it unnoticed, and I think, no, I'm just going to take the cash. Is there any benefit of the doubt given to him on that front?
possibly, but I think the deal was already signed, right?
Oh, I've got no doubt. I mean, I think Smithy signed probably almost immediately after he won.
Well, I hope so. I hope it was after and not before, because his stock price would have risen very sharply post that. But yeah, look, it is what it is, and I think, like, this could have been, this next wave at the end of the season, this could have been a lot worse for the PGA Tour. Like,
sure,
losing Cam is a massive blow. Like, we should absolutely not sugarcoat that at all. It now means they've got a really big stronghold into the Aussie market with Smith, Leishman, Matty Jones, for whatever it's kind of there. Like, so they've actually got a pretty good stronghold into the Aussie market now by securing Cam Smith. It is, but they didn't take Scheffler, they didn't take a John Rahm, they didn't take Rory or JT or Spieth or any of these guys. So they've, I don't know. For me, it still feels like the tour has a bit of armor right now. But to your point before, they've played all their chips. They have nothing left now. They've put everything on the table, and it almost feels as though the ship has sailed on some sort of meeting of middle ground as well, or some sort of radical PGL style coming in and saving the tour. Like, it feels like the tour, 12 months ago went, no, we can fight this off and we'll do it ourselves. And I think we all probably saw through that, the charade that it was. And now they're kind of having a fight at themselves, and, they're turning to Rory and Tiger to kind of do it. Like, I still feel like they're a bit of a basket case at the moment, and they're trying to put a Band-Aid on an axe wound. So
complete. Before we go maybe specifically to the tour changes, I'm cognizant, and this is probably a wonderful reflection of how we view the defections to live. Cognizant that we've spoken for half an hour and not really touched on Marc Leishman. And I think maybe for whatever reason, we view him differently. And maybe there is a little bit of, well, you know what, Leish, fill your boots. You're probably on the downhill slope in terms of the trajectory of the career. You probably increasingly in the last 2 to 3 years have started to suffer some level of injury that is starting to hinder starts and probably regular continuity of appearances on the PGA Tour. And for whatever reason, maybe it is those and only those, maybe there's others, but it does feel a little bit different. It does kind of feel like, well, good for you, mate. You cash your check while you can. You get what you can on the way out, and make sure you and your family live a comfortable life. I don't know about you, but I it doesn't feel the same as it does, to a lesser extent for Nima, but particularly comparatively to Cameron Smith.
Yeah, look, yeah, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. I think
Good on you, Leish.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Like, just really quickly thinking about it, like there are guys that like Lee Westwood and Sergio and all these guys who have gone. It's kind of like why have you gone? And I'm not saying that Leish is in that category, but he's definitely getting towards that area, right? And then at the other end of the tunnel, we've got all the young guys like Jed Morgan, and we're kind of like, yeah, go fill your boots, do what you want. And then that middle patch is like your Cam Smiths of the world, and we're kind of like, what are you doing? Are you sure you're making the right decision?
Cam.
Yeah,
Jeez,
but
Cam.
it's funny. It is interesting. And the other one, the other Australian that's actually not been talked about at all in any of this as an impact of these 6 new signees is Trav Smythe drops out. So he was part of LIV's first, I don't know, 3 events. How many have they had? 3 or 4? 2? I don't even know however many. 3, I think. He was part of the first 3 events and now has had to make way for these new 6 signings. So it will only be a matter of time until they continue signing more and more bigger names. And then names like Sergio will drop out, because they're not going to be the draw card that they once were. So yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how that kind of falls out, and then where do they go and play post that, if they do want to continue playing, that is. So
the Asian tour. Scotty intrigues me as well. Like, I don't think there's an offer coming for J-Day. Greatest respect. The body's just completely fallen apart. So I don't think there's any value in even the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia throwing 40 million at Jason Day just to appear, because he may not make it onto the course. Scotty intrigues me. Scotty's, I think, the Renaissance man in many respects. He's getting better with age. He obviously went on a little bit of a run in the Tour Championship. He's now, for all intents and purposes, he's the lead Australian hope on the PGA Tour and remains so. So, yeah, Scotty's intriguing. How long he can, I suppose, turn down the allure of the significant cash on offer. I'm sure there's been offers. I'm certain. So how long he can keep that at arm's length will be really interesting to watch.
There's obviously talk. I'm just trying to find it on Twitter, the full list of players that have committed to the LIV event this week. But there's obviously talk about a purely Australian team happening.
Yes.
Happening
So that would be, I believe, Smith, Leishman, Jones, Ormsby, I believe, is the Australian team happening in Boston this week.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That is a very easy team to root for.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
What are they called?
I'm not entirely certain, to be
honest. Surely that's going to be blown up post year 1. Like, we're not rocking around with the fucking 4 races again, are we? I know I
wouldn't have thought so.
The 4 races, and the fireballs. That's the only 2 that I know. So
a little bit of time maybe to let nominate some captains, bit of market research, put it out there to a focus group, come up with some Australian names for an Australian team. Yep. I think you'll find that year 2 will be a far slicker operation than year 1. Ironing out some significant kinks in year 1.
Yeah.
But year 2 will be slicker than year 1. Should we go to the PGA Tour changes?
Yes, please.
So just briefly, because as I said, we kind of had our pants pulled down. We recorded last week, and we're sitting here having a good old gag about AFL finals and college football kicking off, and we said, "Oh, geez, I'm pretty sure Jay Monahan's talking in an hour about something," and then hit stop, and sure enough, Jay Monahan announced probably the most significant changes to the tour in more than a decade. So, given everything that's happened since then, that feels like a month ago, let alone a week ago. But some significant changes were made. And I think it's probably the context. This is obviously that meeting that we've spoken about tonight, the 20-odd players that happened in Delaware at the first event of the playoffs, led by Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy, who have subsequently launched their own side company, Tomorrow Sports, TMRW, and have launched TGR, which we'll get to, which is phenomenal in its own sense. But they've clearly been working together for some time, presented to the players, and subsequently presented to Jay Monahan, who I would suggest has probably just rolled out anything that they recommended. I don't know that there was much of a fight or an argument or a nah, not sure we can do that, guys. I think it was probably just yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir, and we'll do whatever you please, because I get the sense that you kind of said before. I think the phrase used was something along the lines of the tour has turned to Rory and to Tiger. I very much get the sense that Tiger and Rory have said we're the captain now. To use a movie reference. I'm not sure the two had turned to them so much as they walked in and said, "Oi, Jay, switch the fuck on. There's a bit happening outside, and you're asleep at the fucking wheel. So we're going to do some things and make some changes if it's all the same to you." So, I mean, that's just me. That's just the sense that I got from doing from the outside. So we're looking at those changes. There's a variety. So top players, I think this is the first and foremost thing. Top players to commit to at least a 20-event PGA Tour schedule, assuming that they qualify, which includes elevated events, obviously the FedEx Cup playoffs, the Genesis, Arnold Palmer, the Memorial, WGC Dell Match Play, Century Tournament of Champions, to be announced are 4 additional elevated events. And then you've got the Players, Masters, PGA Championship, US Open, Open Championship. And then I think it's 3 additional FedEx Cup events of the players choosing. So really 12 elevated events, your majors, 3 additional FedEx Cup events. That's all about the best players in the world playing together more often. Strength of field, concentrated talent, the best of the best, week in, week out, 20 times a year. Not sure if you saw John Rahm's comments. Have you caught up with this?
No.
Fascinating. So, in theory, fantastic idea. Like, we often complain about the fact that the season goes through lulls, that, we have back-to-back good weeks and then we go 4 weeks of shitty fields, alternate field events, and we can't get any sort of momentum on the best players in the world. So, in theory, fantastic idea. The question was put to John Rahm. I think it was either pre or during East Lake, the event across the weekend, what his thoughts were on committing to 20 events in a year.
I did see this. You're right.
He was like, sorry? They're like, the announcement last week, the top players, 20 events in a year. He said, is it 20? And they're like, yes, John, it's 20 events you'll be playing from next year. He goes, what's the breakdown? And they were walking through it with him. And it was like he was A, unaware, and B, none too pleased. Because essentially the question was, like, is it unfair on players such as yourself who have to go back to Europe and play on the European Tour to qualify for the Ryder Cup? So I think there's a minimum of 3 or 4 events that must be played on the European Tour in a calendar year for a player to be eligible. So really what John Rahm is looking at is actually 24 events comparatively to 20. And he essentially said, I'd be surprised if that's where we land. I'm sure there'll have to be some exceptions made. To which someone said, do you know something we don't? To which he said, there's only 2 players that you need to talk to if you want to know about the changes that are going on. And that was the end of the line of questioning and essentially the press conference. So
it was good.
Quite fascinating.
It was good. I liked it.
John's a strong-willed fellow. And I just found that really interesting that, like, straight off the bat, for all the great energy and momentum that came out of that announcement, we've got a top 5 player in the world, arguably outside of Rory, the face of European golf, haven't necessarily brought him on the journey completely with our new way of thinking. Small issue.
Yeah.
Maybe get John. John's probably one of the 4 or 5 guys, if I'm looking at it. Like, if you're top 2 in the TP, if the Chiefs up here are Tiger and Rory, and if I've got a next tier of guys, I'm thinking it's probably Justin Thomas, it's probably Jordan Spieth, and John would be right there. John's pretty important. Let's bring him on the journey.
Agreed. No, completely agree. Completely agree. That's going to be a very interesting one. I reckon LIV would have been on the phone pretty quickly about, hey, we only play 14 events or whatever it is. But, I mean, obviously that's going to change as well, potentially. You know, they're going to have to go through play in Asia and they're probably going to be playing upwards of 20 events. You touched on a really important point before around the OWGR. those 12 elevated events, or those 20 events that those top players are going to play in, like, they are going to so quickly build the divide between the OWGR of the LIV players and the non-LIV players. So those strength of fields are going to be significant. LIV is obviously not eligible for OWGR. So you're going to start to see guys rapidly fall who are playing on the LIV tour, and guys who are finishing in T55 in some of these tournaments really, really quickly rise up the rankings and overtake the LIV guys. So that it's an important point to note, because it's going to affect the LIV guys most importantly when it comes to majors and the other events as well.
I agree. The part that I did not mention, as it relates specifically to these 20 tournaments, particularly the elevated events, is the increase in prize money.
Mm-hmm.
Significant increase in prize money. So as I look at it here, FedEx Cup playoffs, FedEx St. Jude Championship up to $20 million purse, BMW Championship up to a $20 million purse, the Tour Championship and the FedEx Cup bonus pool up to $75 million. The Genesis at Riviera, $20 million. The Arnold Palmer up to $20 million. The Memorial up to $20 million. The WGC Delt Match Play up to $20 million, and the Century Tournament of Champions to begin the year in Hawaii up to $15 million. The 4 additional elevated events yet to be announced, all purses at $20 million each. Approximately a $46 million incremental addition to the total purse value of the 2022-23 season. So a lot more cash. The players drew to up to $25 million from next year. So they've brought together the best players in the world with a commitment to play these 20 tournaments together, and they've significantly increased the purse. It pales into comparison to the money on offer at LIV, but it is significant. The second piece, Drudes, is the PIP, the Player Impact Program, the often memed and ridiculed and chastised Player Impact Program. Some changes have been made. So it was the top 10 players would receive a financial award. It's now going to reward 20 players, so up from 10. The total bonus pool of $100 million is up from the previous $50 million. The PIP criteria will be adjusted to remove the Q score and the social media criteria, RIP Max Homer, as it relates to that, and expand an awareness criteria to capture the awareness from casual and core fan base of any player within that top 20. No great level of detail about how they're going to measure awareness, which is an often criticized metric. So I'm very curious on that. For 2022, any player on the revised criteria list who is not on the current criteria list will receive a payout equal to 20th position, most likely 2 or 3 players. So there's just a bit of free cash for people. Good luck to you. Players will receive their PIP bonus at the end of the season after competing in the 13 elevated events and 3 non-elevated events as outlined above. So that's important. No play, no money. You must commit to the events and play. And then I think the other changes which are significant. So what they've done, Drudes, is they've looked after, in my mind, almost every tier of player that it remains in the PGA Tour. It's the very best, right? They've brought you together more times in a year. They've significantly increased your prize money. Probably tier 2 who are captured in that increase, double the amount of people captured by the PIP, double the amount of money. That's that tier 2, that next tier. This is significant because this is the majority of people that are left on the PGA Tour that will benefit from these changes. So players that are fully exempt on the PGA Tour, Corn Ferry Tour graduates category and above on the priority ranking, will be eligible for the Earnings Assurance Program. So the Earnings Assurance Program, fully exempt members, guaranteed league minimum of $500,000 per player, with the tour funding any gaps in earnings. So you'll either earn it, or if you don't earn $500,000, the tour will top up your amount that you earn a minimum of $500,000 in a year. Rookies and returning members will receive that money up front. You must participate in at least 15 events. That is significant, Drudes. Ever before have you had guaranteed money on the PGA Tour. And what we're saying is here, regardless of results, you will walk away with $500,000 in a year.
Yeah, it's huge. It's a massive change, and for the tour to be stumping up any shortcomings in earnings is I your point before was really important, and I was going to raise it. You've obviously got the stuff that focuses on the best of the best, and then you've got this is for the masses here, and $500,000 is still pretty good earnings for a year for
Absolutely.
anyone on the tour that's in that Corn Ferry Tour category and above. So,
and then just finally for non-exempt members, so that's you're ranked 126 to 150 and below. Should you get a start on a PGA Tour event, you will be eligible for what's called the travel stipend or stipend. I always struggle with that word. Program. You'll essentially receive $5,000 for every missed cut. Your travel and your tournament-related expenses will also be subsidized over and above that $5,000. So you won't be able to pocket any cash to get to and from a tournament, or the money that you spend in terms of accommodation, food and beverage, transport. You'll also receive $5,000 should you not make the weekend. Guaranteed money again. So that's a significant development in my mind, and how it differs from LIV. You mentioned someone like Trav Smythe before. So Trav Smythe, and we're talking a little bit out our arse here because we haven't, unfortunately, had the opportunity to have someone like Trav or even Trav on. Love to have Trav on the show and have a chat about his journey. But to my knowledge, you weren't guaranteed anything at Trav's level in LIV Golf. You were given an opportunity. And obviously, I mean, you still earned a bit of cash because Jed did well. Jed got himself in there, got over there, came in a team that ran dead last and still won a significant amount of money. But you weren't guaranteed anything. And now Trav finds himself on the outer, just back on the Asian Tour, having a swing where he certainly isn't guaranteed any money. So this is significant. Even players 126 to 150 and below, you have $5,000 in your pocket if you miss the weekend, and you won't be out of pocket for any expenses to get to and from a tournament or stay. Like, significant. Anyone like with Harrison Endicott, just graduated from the Corn Ferry Tour, is walking away with a minimum $500,000 next year. Minimum.
Yep. Yeah.
So, like, important changes to the extent whereby Cameron Young, who I'm certain is about to be named the Rookie of the Year after a fantastic year in his debut season on the PGA Tour, said, like, he had been offered, and he said, these changes have swayed my decision to stay.
Yeah. Oh, it's when they announced all of this stuff, it was enormous. It was I thought it was a really positive announcement as well. I think, we've kind of seen like little dribs and drabs, and the cynic in a lot of people, I think, straight away was like, well, where's all this money come from? Why are you doing it now? And I think, having listened to Jay Monahan's press conference, he said, like, this is what cash reserves are for. Like, we're not, reserves are there in times of crisis for us to lean on. We don't just spend all of our money. We ensure that we have cash reserves so that we can lean on it. And I thought he answered that question really well. I actually thought that Jay Monahan spoke quite well across the board in that press conference. And as you mentioned before, he was asked, would you welcome anyone from LIV back? And he said no. And that was really the end of that answer. So a massively positive announcement for the PGA Tour. I think there's obviously, for those top guys, there's opportunities to earn significant amounts more money. For the guys in the middle of the run, they're at least earning $500,000 a year, which would be way more than most other working Americans throughout the year. And of course, those guys that are either just starting their careers or, struggling to get exemptions onto the tour, they're going to be subsidized for their expenses. So I think it really does hit all three levels. And yeah, all in all, it was a positive announcement out of the tour, and it'll be interesting to see if this will continue to sway anyone else. Obviously, you know, those 6 guys that we spoke about obviously wouldn't. we said that their deals were done ahead of these announcements, which, you know, we think is true. So it'd be fascinating to see if this sways anyone over the next few months.
Remiss of me not to mention Anaban Lahiri was also on that list. The Indian Anaban Lahiri,
Yes.
the barn
Opens up the Indian market.
Does. He's on the defecting list. I think I might have said Mito Pereira. I don't think Mito was actually there, so I've signed Mito off to live. Look, I wouldn't say it's ruled out. I'd say Mito might follow his compatriot. In the very near future.
Well, talking about sort of areas that they're going to go after, I mean, you look at that South American market, and someone like Sebastian Munoz would obviously make a lot of sense.
Yes. And Abraham Ansah, Carlos Ortiz.
Yep.
All of those guys.
Yep. So it all makes sense. And then there was a guy before who you mentioned, Hideki Matsuyama, who obviously turned his back on a massive offer, probably the biggest offer that anyone aside from, Tiger, other than Tiger. So it really makes me wonder how a guy perhaps like who's coming through the ranks, who's immensely talented, like Akita Nakajima, who's the number 1 amateur in the world, whether they're going to make a significant play for him. Obviously, he doesn't have the stature that Hideki has in the pool in Japan, but there's no doubt that he's going to be a superstar of the future. So
Takumi Kanaya is another one. And then, of course, you've got Sung Jae-im, Ben An, Tom Kim.
Yes.
Like you've got the whole South Korean contingent as well. Immensely popular.
Well, I think there's because a lot of these players, someone pointed out, I think it was Golf Digest in one of their 47 articles that they've written about this over the last few days, that a lot of these players are all run by the same management company, GSC, which I was looking through before. And there's quite a few South Koreans in their stable. So that'll be interesting to see if South Korea is another market that they want to tap into.
All I would say on the changes to the PGA Tour, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Immensely positive, somewhat overdue in my mind. I would count myself as one of these potentially cynical people, because you can't release money like that, just like that. Like there's a process that's involved, and I'm sure there's been conversations that's been going on for a little while now between the commissioner and Tiger and Rory in particular. But like when he comes out and he says that's what cash reserves are for, well, you've had them for a significant period of time, and it kind of feels like we're scrambling here to not get outflanked. So we're finally going to offer some cash to the 98% of people who struggle week to week on this tour to keep them engaged. And we're going to up the top end as well to keep those guys engaged. It's like, well, why now? It feels like only because you're being outflanked. And that's a little disappointing, right? Like it is great to have cash reserves, and it's wonderful to be able to lean on them. But I wouldn't necessarily, if I were him, be flying the flag to say, well, guys, this is what cash reserves are for, to give us the ability to do this, because I think you open yourself up to questions as to why it's taking you so long. I don't necessarily know that you would have bled the amount of players you have to this extent if you'd made this move 6 months ago, 8 months ago, 12 months ago. Like there's been a significant bury the head in the sand and this isn't legitimate and they won't pull players, and oh shit, they all of a sudden have, and now it's like trying to catch oil. Yeah. Pun intended. So it's frustrating to me that this is a watershed moment for the tour that probably should have happened 12 months ago. So anyway, can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, Drew.
No, you can't.
Cannot put the toothpaste back in the tube. So
no.
We will wait to see what impact it has. The overwhelming feeling that I have, and we said it before, is that they've done this. They've made these announcements. They've committed to the fact they aren't changing their charitable status. There's not many cards left to play. And you're coming up against all of the money in the world. So it's a little concerning that, it very much feels like with the court case and with these announcements, PGA Tour has won the battle probably not going to win the war.
Yeah, I think that
As
court
they
case is obviously the massive part. I think, there's two big things to fall. First being the OWGR points, which I don't know timeline on that, and then that court case, which is still a full year away. So all I can say is I'm looking forward to the majors more than ever, because it means we'll truly get all the best players in the world back together. So be a bit of a band reunion. I wonder how it'll how they'll all be welcomed back and in amongst the fold. Should we finish on the Tour Championship?
Yeah, well, I think it was probably good to finish on a positive.
Yeah.
Albeit briefly. I mean, I think, phenomenal performance. Rory McIlroy becomes the first person in the history of the game to win the Tour Championship on 3 different occasions, and does it having started the day, I think it was 6 or 7 shots back of Scotty Scheffler, who well and truly shat the bed 3 over in the final round to go on and lose the tournament. But truly phenomenal golf by Rory. And I think for me, it's wonderful to see his golf rewarded. I would have loved to have seen it probably on a grander stage than the Tour Championship, but I'm glad for his sake that it has been rewarded, because this is something that's been coming. I think in many respects, the genesis, as we've said a number of times, is his victory in the singles at the Ryder Cup on Sunday over Xander Schauffele. But I think probably properly from the back 9 on Sunday at Augusta, I think there's been something special about the way he's been playing and building. And, his 3rd victory for the year, 3rd Tour Championship. And in the context of everything that he has shouldered in the past couple of months to essentially be the face of the game, Tiger's been no doubt doing the dealings in the back room and using his sway and influence and power there. But Rory's been the one on the front foot. He's been the spokesperson. He's almost put himself in front of everything at the expense of everyone else to spare them of that. And to see him do that, I am continually impressed by him as a not just a golfer, but as a human being. He's an exceptional person, I think, and wonderful to see him rewarded in that fashion. And it was terribly exciting golf. I mean, you and I spoke. I know you didn't catch much of it, but that back 9, between Scheffler, on the fritz, and then Rory kind of, the birdie on 15 was enormous, like a 35 foot putt to put himself in it. All the while you had Sung Jae, who, by the way, won the actual tournament without the shots. So congratulations to Sung Jae, who's the gross champion of the Tour Championship. He had a phenomenal, albeit I think it was a double on the 13th or 14th, cost him. He ends up losing by 1. So Sung Jae had a phenomenal tournament. He was 2 holes ahead and really setting the pace. So really exciting back 9. But yeah, for Rory to finish the year in that fashion, I think is absolutely just reward for what's been, an incredibly burdensome year, I think, for him, both on and off the course.
Yeah, no, very well said, as per usual. The only thing I would say, as well, on top of that, he's a new father as well. He's had so much in his life change, and for him to actively walk towards being the face of all these changes, and just to have to I think at times this year, and maybe throughout the last few years, we've perhaps questioned his mental fortitude to really get over the line in those majors, and for him to this week, and maybe for the last 2-3 months, for him to go out and just switch off from all that LIV Golf crap and deliver good golf, and golf that's good enough to beat the best players in the world, is really impressive. So love it. Love to see it. He's a good man. And yeah, I was pumped to see him lift the trophy, and it felt like a bit of a kumbaya moment for the tour, didn't it? Seeing Rory lift the trophy.
It was very very apt, I think.
Yeah.
And credit to him, he didn't miss an opportunity to have a couple of drive-bys in the press conference afterwards.
Good on him.
Walking from the green to the scorer's tent. I think he gave these ones. Like it was brilliant. Said something about, it's pretty exciting to take the lead on the 70 or 71st hole of a tournament, or 51st or 52nd, depending what you play, or something like that. So like he had a couple of little digs which I thoroughly enjoyed. Like he's obviously in a good place. I think he feels pretty good, as he should, about the work that he's done to make these changes and to drive these changes for the tour. Remains to be seen what impact they'll have long term moving forward. But yeah, I think for someone who clearly is incredibly passionate about the game, not just his place in it, the game more broadly, to take the proactive steps to step in and do something about it, and then still go out and golf his balls off and win a tour champion is exceptionally impressive. So he's a hell of a player. Not to take any away from Scotty Scheffler as well. I mean, that's disappointing. 3 over on a Sunday, and he kind of falls out the back door. The guy's won 4 times this year, including the Masters. He's undoubtedly the player of the year. Yeah. And deservedly so. But yeah, it was Rory's day, and he absolutely deserved it.
Agreed. I think that's it.
That'll probably do us. So I know we telegraphed Harrison Endicott last week, who we managed to have a chat to. Exceptional young man himself. Thoroughly enjoyed that chat. There's obviously been a bit going on in golf, so we felt it was probably most important to give the LIV story time to breathe, digest, talk to you this evening about it. We will hold Harrison Endicott until next week, which I think we'll have to have a look. He told us his first appearance will be in Napa, which isn't that far away. I think it's not quite. It couldn't possibly be fucking next week. We can't be starting again, can we?
Don't know.
I think it's
mid-September. It's mid-September. Cool. I think we'll get him out next week. I wouldn't have thought there'll be any need for us to record next Monday night. Kamashi, I think we'll just roll Harrison Endicott out unless something massive changes in the next 4 days.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I might be telling you for the first time live on air, I'm heading to New Zealand. So I'll be happy to jump on from the land of the long white cloud. But we will wait and see. If not, you'll have Harrison Endicott in your ears. And I'm sure now that I've mentioned that, everybody will be wondering if I will be returning to my spiritual home of Arrowtown Golf Club. Unfortunately not, is the answer. Exclusively North Island trip, this one. Might go and see. Actually, not too far away from Carry Cliffs in one of the places that we're staying. So,
what about Tara Edie? Can you get out there?
Nowhere near Tara Edie, I don't think, from my understanding of where Tara Edie is. Okay. So I'm thinking I'm going to take a drive maybe up to Carry Cliffs. I don't think I'll play it because it's pretty expensive. Might take a drive, take a look.
That'd be good. You'll enjoy that. Good luck to your Demons this weekend, kicking off in the AFL finals. College football kicking off this weekend for my Oregon Ducks and your Texas Longhorns. So I'm sure we'll be invested in our respective sports over this weekend.
Took a little bit of a look, just a quick sidebar after our conversation last week, into my new starting quarterback at University of Texas, Quinn Ewers.
Quinn Ewers, yep.
What a unit. Goodness me.
He's a bit of a nugget.
He's interesting. Interesting the fact that he actually originally committed to Texas only to walk away, and now he's back. So quite a story there. I'd be fascinated to see how the fans embrace him. I'm sure, throwing a couple of TDs and no interceptions will help. But
I think they'll be okay. It's Texas is going to be a fascinating watch. If there's one team that you want to watch this year, just watch Texas for the pure entertainment value, because unless you're a fan of Texas, you'll get some great entertainment out of it, because there could be some big leads blown and there could be some big leads overcome as well, big deficits overcome. So you'll enjoy Texas this year.
We shall see. All right, my friend, it's a pleasure as always. Pleasure to be in your ears. I hope you enjoyed another fascinating episode of the 19th Tee. We'll be back with Harrison Endicott next week.